All right. Hello and welcome to the show, Dr. Candace Jeffries. How are you today?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Awesome too. I mean, considering the stuff that's going on, I hope everybody is safe and sound in your family and in your
Yes.
workplace.
They're just bored. But we're all safe, so that's good.
That's good news. Yeah. All right. So why don't we lighten up the mood a little bit? Why don't you introduce yourself and a little bit about your background and where you hail from?
Okay, so I'm a mom first and foremost. I have three kids, 20, 18, and 16. So two of them are adults that don't think they should have to stay home during this crisis. But
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
I started working in a retail pharmacy when I was 16 years old, and I graduated from pharmacy school in 2001 with my doctorate. And I've always worked retail. And a couple years ago, a big chain bought out my little independent pharmacy that I had worked at forever. And so I went to work for the big chain for a while. And the first day I worked there, we filled 720 prescriptions. And I didn't get a lunch break. I didn't get a bathroom break. I didn't know what I was doing as far as their computer system. And I came home and I told my husband, I'm going to kill somebody. And this is not what I went to pharmacy school for.
Yeah.
So I started doing nursing home consulting, which I really love. But that kind of got me into the whole consulting world, which is a completely different world than, retail pharmacy. And a couple years before, well, the year before, um, I quit working retail, my son was actually really depressed, and we put him on medication and it made him suicidal. And so we did a genetic test to see which med would be best for him. And it came back that he never should have been on the one he was on. And
Wow.
so we switched him. And now I'm thankful to say that he's not on anything now. He's perfectly fine now. But that really got me into pharmacogenomic testing, which led me to nutrigenomic testing, which led me to really focus. I've taught Bible study at my church forever, for 15 years, and so I really love women. And so I really focus on women. I focus on perimenopause because nobody warns you about that time in your life.
Yeah.
when your kids are going nuts and your hormones are going nuts and you're like going through reverse puberty. So I really focus on hormones and stress and anxiety and depression and all of that good stuff. So
Wow. Wow. Quite a story. Okay. So let's break it down a little bit. All right. So you first got interested in the, pharmacogenomics and the nutrigenomics field after your son got diagnosed with something with depression, I'm assuming.
mhm.
How did you then transition from pharmacy away from even consulting, or do you still do consulting?
I still do nursing home consulting. It helps me support what I really love to do.
Okay, nice. So
So, because I just started my perimenopause business in September, so I've only been in business for 6 months. So I
okay,
still do nursing home consulting, and I do PRN work for retail, um, just to pay rent.
yeah, very nice, very nice. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Nice. So, okay, so you decided to start your own business consulting women, and is it mostly one-on-one consultations, or do you teach classes or group memberships, or how does it work?
Right. Yeah. Right now, it's just one-on-one. Everything's one-on-one.
Okay,
So
great. So how did that whole process work? Like deciding that this is going to be your niche, that this is what you're really passionate about, and how did you kind of support educating yourself through all the modalities that are out there?
So it started, yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been an interesting journey with it feels kind of like a dance, if something doesn't work, then you take a step in the other direction. And last year in April, I went to a Metapreneur Summit. I
Mm,
don't know if
I
you've
heard
heard of
about that. Yeah,
Metapreneurs, but
I haven't attended, but I definitely heard.
yes, so it's basically medical people who want to think outside the box and be entrepreneurs. So I went to that, and I met a couple there, a husband and a wife. The husband has a business degree, and the wife is a pharmacist and had her own consulting business. And I asked them if they would be my business coach, and they're like, well, we've never done that, but we could. And so I started working with them. And when we started talking about like my ideal client, they were like, oh, because your son has this story, do you think that people who are depressed and suicidal are your ideal client? And I'm like, no, I feel like it's more their moms. And so I don't know, we looked at my avatar in the business world, entrepreneur world. You have to know who your avatar is, and that's your ideal client. So we really looked at who, for me, what is my passion, and who is that for me. And once I like nailed that down, it was like, oh, well, that's easy, this is what we need and this is what I can do. So then as far as training, for the genetic testing part, the lab that I use had amazing training online. And so I just watched all their videos and really self-taught myself. And even when I first started the hormone thing, I was really just teaching. I'm a nerd and I love to study. So I was just teaching myself a lot. But then people were coming to me with different problems, and I was like, I really need to broaden my knowledge base. So I joined the School of Applied Functional Medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been absolutely phenomenal. And I got a business coach, Anna Garrett, who does what I do and has for 10 years, 9 years. And so she's really helped me both on the business side, but also on the clinical side. So,
Wow, amazing. So how
yeah,
long is that program, or are you still going through it?
I just started it in January.
Great.
So it's, if I want to get certified, I think it's like a 2-year process, but it's phenomenal. I've learned so much craziness.
Yeah, I heard that it's a really good program. So as far as the testing goes, do you have to be in a collaborative agreement of some sort with another practitioner to order those tests, or how does that part work?
No, thankfully I don't. I actually, when I first started, I was trying to work in a doctor's office, and I had a doctor who really wanted me. I actually had two doctors that really wanted me to work in their office, but the administration wasn't, wasn't on board. And so yeah, I don't have a collaborative practice agreement with anyone right now. Now, I did talk to a nurse practitioner yesterday, because with hormones, sometimes you need prescription
Mm-hmm.
strength, you
Mm-hmm.
know, testosterone's a prescription only. So I think in the future, I see me, having somebody that I can at least refer people to if they need those kind of things. But none of the testing requires a physician. It requires a license, so it requires an MPI number, but not necessarily a doctor.
Mm-hmm. So, walk us through your typical appointment. Person comes in. Do you always order lab work and testing? Do you always, you know, interview for the physical? Is there a spiritual component? Like, how does the whole session work?
So typically people find me, it seems like on Facebook more than anywhere, and or word of mouth. Almost everybody that I've had has been referrals. And so I send them paperwork that's a really pretty thorough. I used to use a 17-page
Wow.
patient intake form. I've like, okay, maybe that's a little too much.
Yeah, functional
So I've
medicine can be like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it was so great because I think a lot of times people come to you because of one specific thing, but in functional medicine, you really start to get to the root cause of things. And so when you see their whole profile and health history, you can really say, hey, I feel like this is going on. This is probably the cause of why you're here for hormones. Um, so anyway, so they fill out the paperwork. My first consultation is always free, and I really just listen and see if I think that I'm right for them. Because there are some patients that I can't help because I don't have the tools in my toolbox that they need. So um, so I really listen. And then I have different programs. You know, you can do just a hormone test with a consultation. You can do just a genetic test with a consultation. Or I have a 12-week program where we really hone in on, you know, spirituality, diet, exercise, stressors, habits, mindset, all of those things, which to me is the best program because it gives me time to really get to know them, and it gives them time to process and take baby steps towards a really path of wellness rather than just putting a band-aid on something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So do you find that testing is necessary for everyone, or are the symptoms enough in some cases?
I don't run tests for everybody. I have found that there are certain times when I definitely like, we need to run a test because I think this is what's going on, but I'm not positive. But like I had a college student come to me over Christmas break, and she wanted to get off of her Prozac. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really need to run a test for that. I know what supplements you're probably lacking, and I definitely know what we need to supplement while you're weaning off of the Prozac. And she actually texted me the other day and said, people keep asking me how my anxiety and depression is through this whole coronavirus thing. And she goes, honestly, I feel better on the medication that you've put me on, which isn't even medication. But she's like, I feel better on the medication that you have me on than I ever did on Prozac. So,
Okay.
so I don't do, and I mean, I don't do tests for everybody.
Okay, so in order to either, recommend a certain course of action for a person, do you usually also go through a medication therapy management as part of it? And is your goal to get them off medications and onto supplements, or what is the usual, goal of treatment?
Well, I think every individual is unique. And so some of them aren't on any medications. The ones that are on quite a few medications, I mean, it's really hard to see a person one time and say, hey, let's get off your meds. So
Right.
that's more like my 12-week program. Um, but I really feel like now that I'm in the School of Applied Functional Medicine, that I'm going to just take appointments and not just necessarily have a 12-week program or a one-time program, because my goal, yes, my goal is absolutely, if I could get everybody off of all of their medication, I would do that. To, my goal is not to get everybody off of medication and get them onto supplements. My goal is to teach them that your body is created to work perfect in the environment that you put it in. And if your body isn't working perfectly, then it's telling you, hey, I don't like something about my environment. And whether that's the food that we're eating, the lack of exercise that we're getting, the stress that I've had two clients quit their jobs because I'm like, hey, it's up to you. You can keep going to that place every single day and feel the way that you feel. Or if you really want to feel better, then your body is telling you this is not working for me. So, you know, I think every person is unique. That's what I love about what I do, because I feel like at the retail pharmacy, everyone was a cookie cutter, like,
Mhm.
oh, you have this lab work, so this is what we're going to put you on. And I don't feel like that's what my practice is about. It's about, I really want to listen to you, and let's really get to the root cause of why you have to be on all this medicine in the first place. How did you get here? And
Right.
how can we reverse that? And how can we get back to a path of wellness, physically, spiritually, emotionally, so that you can feel good and feel, I think we're supposed to feel fantastic all the time. I really believe that. So,
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad they have you as a support system.
well,
So,
thank you. I'm glad
what
I have them because they're all pretty awesome.
what's the most profound, you know, part of the therapy of the consultation? What do you find, like in the 12-week program, for example? Is it the job and the stressors? Is it the exercise? Is it a more energetic and spiritual quality to it?
I honestly think that it's that I listen. I've had several clients say, you're the first person that has just listened to what I have to say. And I love medical doctors. I'm not slamming medical doctors. I mean, I went to the doctor Friday because I'm sick, and they did the corona test on me, and thank God I tested negative. But anyway, I'm not against doctors at all, but doctors, because of the system that they're in, they have about 7 minutes to spend with a client, and you can't learn what you need to learn to help someone, and you certainly can't educate someone in what they need to be educated on in 7 minutes. I mean, if I'm doing an hour session 12 weeks in a row and people still have to come back after that, then this path to wellness, it takes time. And I would say the number one thing that we deal with is stress. I mean, we live in our bodies were created to fight or flight. We're created, if there's a bear chasing us, we're created to run and survive.
Yeah.
But we have so many perceived stressors. We put so much stress on ourselves. And I don't know if that's because of social media. I don't know if that's because of um, just perfectionism in our culture.
Mhm.
But I mean, people, when I'm like, just take a deep breath, breathe in. Am I doing it perfectly? It's like, you don't have to do it perfectly. Like, quit stressing out about that, I mean, and I just think Americans are just high strung and stressed out. So I really work on stress management, but I'm a very spiritual person, and I have very strong spiritual beliefs. And so I personally believe that we're also in a war between good and evil, and we have an enemy that's wants to kill, steal, and destroy. So we definitely look at that perspective too of what's going on. And, I think that when we can keep our eyes focused on the positive and on the, instead of looking at all that we want and can't have, or all that we wish for and don't have, if we can just embrace all the beauty around us that we have. I mean, yeah, it sucks that we're stuck inside for 4 weeks or whatever, but it's 4 weeks. And I mean, it's such a nice time to like play games and do the things that we're like, oh, I wish I had time to do that, take a walk, you know so it's kind of
Well,
nice that
social
everything's
distancing, of course.
yes. Well, I figure out in nature there's plenty of room for all of us to take a walk
Yeah,
away from each other.
absolutely.
So, but just to get back to nature and get back to God and creation, and um yeah, I think, I don't even know what your question was, but
Yeah, but
I focus on that. I definitely do.
yeah, that's awesome. Which city did you say you live in again?
I live in right outside of Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay, yeah. So I'm in New York, and I can definitely relate to like all the high strung, overachieving type A personality people that, tend to congregate here and just go for their dreams, but end up burning themselves out because, it's humanly impossible to just go, go, go 24/7. You need that rest time. You need that gratitude. You need to sit back and absorb all the things, instead of just go, go, go.
Well, and one thing that I know about women, because I've worked with women so long, is that we are so awesome at taking care of everybody else. And we're not so awesome at taking care of ourselves. And I honestly think that a lot of women, and I'm really talking to moms and wives, but I think a lot of women feel guilty if they practice self-care, if they take a bubble bath or and read a book at night or light a candle that makes them happy, and they feel like they feel guilty.
Yeah.
And I mean, ever since I had 2 kids while I was in pharmacy school, so I feel like I've had kids my whole adult life. And and I never, ever, ever felt bad about leaving for a weekend and scrapbooking with my friends. I go scrapbooking every 6 months, and
Wow.
my husband loves it because he knows I'm better when I come back because I've done something for myself. And I think we can look at that and say, well, that's kind of selfish, but it's not selfish. It's self-care. There's a difference, you know? And we're so selfless so much of the time that we really need to learn to practice self-care, and we need to slow down, and we need to look in the mirror and see the beauty that's there. and our bodies change. They change. I mean, I'm never going to be 20 again. I got 3 kids and I got stretch marks and I have hail damage on my butt. And that is just reality, but I have an awesome life. And so, and I have a beauty that it's so much greater than what my outside looks like. And so do you, and so does every person. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. Just owning every part of you, no matter what judgment you have towards it, just knowing that it's you and you probably wouldn't have it any other way anyway.
yeah, I
So,
just embrace life. I mean,
yeah.
life is wonderful. It's meant to be wonderful. So,
Yeah, what an amazing attitude. Yeah, I wish more people had that attitude because a lot of the time we could see that on the outside, like, hey, how are you? But nothing, but underneath that, a lot of people are like silently suffering and, being anxious or covering up some kind of health issues because the nervous system is actually giving them physical symptoms after that. So it's amazing to see somebody that's actually like shining and authentically saying,
well, and I'm not saying that I don't have hard times. I mean, when my son was suicidal, and I didn't mention this, but I'll just go ahead and say it. Both my kids have given me permission to share their story. But the reason, what sent my son into the tailspin that he went into was that one of his best friends sexually assaulted my daughter. So, okay, I'm going to cry. But so I have this going on with my daughter, and then I have this going on with my son, and none of that was easy, and none of it was fun, and none of it was, oh, this is fantastic. I'm not a like flake like that. Like life is fantastic. Life is not always fantastic, but if you can take a step back and say, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? And what are my kids learning? And what can I teach them about people and about God and about themselves? What is the silver lining in this? And my son is actually studying to be a missionary. And the whole time he was going through that, I was like, Garrett, you're in a battle, and you need to fight. And he has come out so awesome on the other side. And my daughter, she was like, where was God, Mom, when that happened? And so we really have some really great talks about that people get to make decisions, and that doesn't always reflect God. And so I just think, I don't want you to think that I'm just over here with my pom poms going, life is always grand and you never have any reason to be anxious or sad. Or I think we need to embrace what we feel. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Because grief is a real thing, and it can be grief over the death of a dream that you had. It can be grief over the death of a person or the death of an innocence. Or, I mean, grief is a very real thing. And I'm not saying don't grieve, don't feel, don't be anxious. I mean, all of those things are normal for us as humans. I just think that we can train our mind to take a step back and say, okay, I'm in the middle of this and it's not good, and what can I learn from it? How can I like shine the light for other people in the middle of my darkness? Because people aren't really drawn to you when everything is fantastic in your
mhm,
life.
yeah,
People are really drawn to you when life is hard and you still have a smile on your face, and they're like, where does that come from?
mm,
And so I really just, I mean, like I said, I'm a very spiritual person. So I want to shine the light of God. That's what I want to do. I want people to know that there's something much greater here going on.
yeah,
And there's always a silver lining, always. We just have to take a step back and see it. And sometimes that takes a moment. I mean, when I was in the middle of that crisis, I wasn't silver lining it. I was I was like doggy paddling, just trying to survive. Then it took about a year after the whole thing was over that I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? What
mm,
was that? And and really started thinking about, gosh, we all went through that as a family. I mean, all of us, all 5 of us went through that whole thing, and it just brought us so close together. So sometimes it's after the fact that you realize what the whole point of the trial was.
yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so sorry that your family had to deal with all of that and how it affected you guys. But on the plus side, like you were saying, I mean, it's amazing that they shared these. things with you, because some people would try to hide or be ashamed of it and cover it up, and then spend years and years and years in therapy. And I'm sure that was part of it, part of the healing. But the fact that they were able to confide in the family and the parents and the siblings and all come together as one to deal with it, that must have been a blessing in and of itself, because it wasn't just her alone or just him alone. It was all of you together. So that's definitely like something that not every family has.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're making me cry, but yeah. I mean, and I think as a practitioner, people will open up to you if you're transparent. And I have always been transparent with my kids. I mean, I made some really stupid mistakes. I did some really stupid things when I was growing up. But I would never try to hide those things. I never expected my kids to be perfect. And I never try to hide those things from my kids. And I mean, my goal has always been to have a strong family, because my family broke up. And so I probably really focus on my kids and my husband and that. And I think that's so important. And I think that a lot of my joy comes from us as a family. And I don't think my kids are happy to be home, but they have no idea how happy I am that they're home, you know? So yes, but I think that as practitioners, if we're not honest with our clients, if we're like, you have to eat it perfect and exercise perfect, and I don't do those things. I mean, I wish that I could say that I eat vegetables all day and exercise, 5 times a week, but I'm realistic and I don't. But I'm still feel like I'm very healthy and very well spiritually, mentally, and physically. I take care of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have to do it perfectly. So there has to be that transparency. For people to be transparent with you, you have to be transparent with them. And I think if we strive for perfection, we're going to make ourselves miserable, and we're going to make everyone around us miserable.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a theme of those like go-getters, and especially like you said, women that try to do it all, have a career, have a family, have children and take care of everything and excel at every single area. That's when they realize, actually I do have to fill my plate first, and I can't be perfect at everything because I'm human. And like we all can't expect that of ourselves and of others around us. So it's like that 80-20 golden rule. Like, 80% of the time you eat well, 20% of the time you have a little treat, even though it's not the healthiest thing for you.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I totally, maybe 90-10, but definitely not 100-0,
Right,
you
right,
know?
right.
I
That's
mean, we have to give ourselves grace. And if we don't give ourselves grace, we're not going to give anybody around us grace.
Yeah,
So,
that's definitely, I find that issue a lot within myself and within, like I said, like a lot of the society, what they expect of people, especially you women. And that is just an impossible goal. So you'll always be miserable because you can't attain that 100%. So
mhm.
if you set a goal to 95, 90, 85, 80, at least you can reach it. So you go,
Yeah.
you meet yourself where you are. Even if you start with 50-50, 60-40, you meet yourself there.
Well, and I think the key is just not beating yourself up and not being all or nothing. Because I think if you're like, okay, I'm going to start this exercise program, and then you don't do it a day and you're like, oh, I'm a failure, and you don't ever start again, then, you're never going to be where you really want to be. And there's a book called Atomic Habits. I can't remember who the writer is, but he talks about, everyone at the Olympics, everyone, their goal is to win. So
Right.
it's not even about goals. It's about what they did before they got there. It was the habits that they created in their lives to get there. And if our habit is beating ourselves up because we're not perfect, then we're not going to train properly. We're not going to, we're not going to get better. So I think every single athlete, my daughter is a college athlete, and I've just watched her from the time she was 5 years old play softball, and her dedication is phenomenal. But there's been times where she didn't didn't really practice, and she didn't get to play, and it really kind of you know, she could have just been like, okay, well, I'm never going to play again. That would have been a travesty.
Yeah.
But instead, she picked up her bat and went outside at home and started just hitting balls on her own, and did what she needed to do to get back to being better. And she's a freshman in college, and she's played almost every single game, which is awesome for a freshman. So, of course, her season got cut really short because of Corona, but she was doing really, she was like third in the batting average for the whole team. So, but I look at her and I think, gosh, what if she would have been disappointed if she didn't get to play that game and just decided it wasn't worth it.
Right.
And us as women, we're the same way. Like, exercise is there's so much pressure on women to look good
Mm.
and on the outside,
Mhm.
and
True.
not a lot of talk about that
And
beauty
not
really
age.
does. Yeah, and not age, but beauty really comes from the inside. You know, I mean, if you spend time with, I have a really good friend who was severely burned. I still don't know what happened to her, because I feel like if she wants to talk about it, she'll talk about it. But her face is, and she is the most beautiful person that I have ever met, because she has such a sweet spirit and she's so kind and caring. And so, you know, I think it's up to us women. I hate it when women are, you know, showing their boobs and their butt and, like, you know, and we're just so much more than that. We're so much more than that. And beauty really does shine from the inside out. So just quit looking at the magazine covers, because we ain't never going to look like that girl. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean we're not beautiful.
Yeah. Plus, beauty is in the eye of the beholder too. So
Absolutely.
it's the
Absolutely.
values that you place in it. So I am also a fan of Joe Dispenza's work. So he says, you know, you can't do the same thing and expect a different outcome. Just like what you were saying, you can't have the same attitude of beating yourself up and then expect something different to happen. So you have to change that mindset for
Yeah.
things to start shifting and for you to see different results on the outside. So it does come, just like beauty comes from the inside out.
Yes. And I think we need cheerleaders. You know, I feel like I'm a cheerleader. That's what I do. I'm an encourager. And I'm like, you can do this. You can do it. So you've messed up this week. Start again.
Yeah. And a lot of times, you know, maybe somebody didn't have that from their family, like those cheerleaders that believed in them and that actually did want these expectations of perfectionism or like reaching higher
Hmm.
and higher. So that's why they didn't get that from their family or their parents or their caregivers or their friends. So they never developed that for themselves. And so they do need people like us, health coaches, consultants, you know, providers to give them that, so that they could learn that and develop that habit, and then they won't need us anymore.
Well, and sometimes it's their husband that requires perfection, that expects perfection, you
Yeah.
know, and sometimes it's about training them to be like, hey, I'm human. And so are you, you know? I mean, can we agree to disagree that we're not, you know, we're not going to be perfect?
Yeah.
So, and yeah, and sometimes I think women think that their husbands expect them to be perfect. And they have a lot of fear wrapped around, well, I don't want to disappoint my husband. I want him to think I look good. And, you know, and I'm like, okay, well, let's really take a step back and look at that. That's fear. And so where is it coming from? And it does, because I know that I was in counseling for a year about over something that happened to me long before I got married, but I was totally putting that on my husband.
Mm,
And my dad left my mom after 25 years, so I was just like waiting for my husband to leave. And that those were all my fears. It wasn't anything that he was doing, it was just my perceived fear of what was going to happen. And so I think just helping people see, like, because we can get crazy in our mind. We can, as women, we're so emotional, and we just, I think everybody can just get so wrapped up in what they think, and it's not really reality. It's fear that's not warranted fear. You know what I mean?
yeah, I know.
It's fear because of something that's happened to us in the past that really doesn't have anything to do with what's going on right now. But see it as this is what's going to happen. But just because it happened then doesn't mean it's going to happen now. So, and just helping them see that, yeah, again, it goes back to being the cheerleader, but also just speaking truth, because
Yeah,
it's so easy when you're on the outside to see what's going
absolutely.
on, and it's not easy when you're in your head to see what's going on. So they just need that extra voice. And yes, to get them on the path to where they don't need you. They realize how awesome they are and that they can do this and they were made to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Seeing it from a different outsider's view perspective is very, very different. And you can give them some insight because sometimes they could just project things, make a whole matrix of things that, is just in their head and not in reality because they have no basis or evidence in the current,
Right.
life to have those thoughts.
And maybe give them some supplements to calm that glutamate and increase that GABA.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta give them what they need.
Yeah.
But I agree with you also about like filling your own plate before trying to fill everybody else's, because then you're just going to spread yourself thin. So it goes back to self-care and just like that airplane analogy with giving yourself the oxygen mask and then you could take care of everybody else. Because if you're out, then you're just no use to anybody, including
Yeah.
yourself.
It's like a pitcher. If you pour it out to everybody and it's dry, you have to go fill it up
Yeah.
before you can help anybody. You have to go fill it up. And if you're, if you're the pitcher pouring out to everybody, where do you go to fill up? And that's different for everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, I like to retreat and get away and be with God and do fun things. And some people want to be in nature, some people want to shop, some people want to get a pedicure. I mean, everybody's different.
Not
But
anymore, not anymore. You
oh,
can't go
yeah,
anywhere.
yeah, you're gonna have to do your own toes today, sweetheart. And so if that doesn't bring you joy, you're going to have to figure something else out. But please don't drink a pitcher of margaritas.
You can have your husband or your kids paint your nails today.
I'm sorry, but it's not the same. But you can enjoy the fact that they're willing to, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I love how we talked about the spiritual or energetic and the nature component because again, God and like spirit is different for everyone and it doesn't have to be religious, but it's just the fact of like being appreciative and joyful and having the life that we do have here and giving thanks for what we do have instead of focusing on what we don't have.
yes.
So shifting your perspective there again, and then also whatever you believe, good or evil, God, devil, or whatever it is,
Right.
it's all different. So as long as you're connecting to that source and like that you're part of this earth, you're part of nature, you're part of everybody else, you're part of humanity, you're part of something bigger, and that like gives me comfort. And same thing with God, that gives comfort. You're part of a spiritual being, you're part of like a higher consciousness.
Mhm.
So it could be in different religions, different philosophies, but just a part of like you're not alone. You do have connections here
Well,
and you
that's
belong
just it.
here.
Yeah, we're all in this together. I
Yeah,
mean, we can, you can get on Facebook and everyone's so divided, but the reality is we're all in this together.
yeah,
And I mean, my life affects a person, another person, and that life affects another person. And it's energy. I do believe it's energy. And I mean, negative energy affects people, positive energy affects people, and we affect each other and we need each other and we're all in this together. And so instead of like fighting it out and fighting over what we don't think the same, I think it's best to like unite in what we do believe the same and, love each other, just love each other where we are.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I love that analogy you used earlier about like shining your light for other people. So we could all, if our heart is in the right place and we're trying to do the right thing, it does have a ripple effect for other people. They can either take that light directly from you, they can get inspired by you, and they could shine their own light.
Yep, that's my goal.
Yeah,
Shine the light.
beautiful. All right. So, how do you usually see clients? Is it online or do you prefer in person?
Well, I prefer in person, but the last 2 weeks, I've been doing everything through Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thank God for technology. I even had Bible study online last night. I taught like 15 people through Zoom. It's interesting. It's definitely a different dynamic, but um, but I prefer one-on-one. I prefer giving hugs. I prefer touch. I mean, I think that's what we were created for. So,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
I can do virtual visits too.
Yeah. Yeah, the in-person definitely has that special spark, like that eye contact and just like the presence and energy. But I agree. I mean, it's so great to be still able to reach people and do our work online from the comfort of your home. Like that's a blessing.
Yeah, like I have pajama pants on right now. No.
I have sweatpants on. So, yeah. All right. So what is your vision for the future of your consulting company? And
Oh,
what is the name? Tell us again.
Remedy Wellness.
Awesome.
Um, I think as an entrepreneur, I should definitely have a vision and a goal, but I just take one day at a time. I just try not to, when I really like, when people ask me questions like that, like my business coach asked me, like, how many clients do you need to see and how much do you need to make? And that, those kind of things stress me out. And so I'm like, hey, I'm doing really good today. And as long as I'm doing good today, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And if it stops working, then I'll tweak something. And that's really how I've done my business ever since I started it, because it started as an online business, and then I got an office 6 months ago. So um, I don't know what the future of my business is. I don't hold the future in my hands, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm just doing what I'm doing today, and it's good, and it fills me up. It brings me joy, so much more than counting pills in a retail pharmacy did.
Yeah.
And so I know that I'm on the right track in that sense.
Yeah. So you're letting it just like flow organically and just developing as it goes. That's awesome.
I'm
Nothing wrong
kind
with
of a
that.
free spirit, if you can't tell. I'm pretty
Yeah.
much a free spirit.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, as something is clearly working, so just keep doing it.
Yeah, that's what I said. If it's working, I'm gonna. What if it's not broke? Don't fix it, right?
All right. So, what would be your advice to other pharmacists or students, perhaps in pharmacy school, that are seeking this kind of alternative pharmacy role or non-traditional consulting role?
Well, I feel like the future of medicine is functional medicine. There's even in the School of Applied Functional Medicine, there are a lot of MDs going through that program. So I feel like we would be doing ourselves a disservice not to really look at that and focus on that. Even if you're working retail, there's so many nutrient depletions when we take drugs,
Yep.
and just learning what those are. So when you put somebody on a statin, make sure they know they need to take fish oil, or when somebody's on metformin, make sure they know they need to be on B12, and just educating yourself on those kind of things. um, and I didn't know that 6 months ago, because we weren't trained that way, you know
No,
what I mean? And so I would say educate yourself, find a good program. And the School of Applied Functional Medicine, for the money, has been amazing. Just a little plug for them.
not.
But uh, I, this was a side gig. I still feel like it's kind of a side gig for me, and that's okay. I think it has to start that way. I mean, I'm not making pharmacists pay. I mean, I'm making more per hour than I did as a retail pharmacist, but I'm not working
Every
30,
year.
40 hours a week. You know what I mean? So it's nice because I do have more free time and time to learn and do those kind of things. But don't be afraid to step out of the boat and just walk on the water. I mean, don't be afraid to take the leap and just try it. You know, pharmacists make enough money that they can try it, and if it fails, that if they've lost a little bit of money, then it's not the end of the world, you know? So just don't let fear stop you. That
Yeah.
would be my biggest piece of advice is because I think it's easier to say, well, like, what if that doesn't work? What if? And then you're stuck in this role where you're absolutely miserable. And 10 years from now, you're like, man, I wish I would have taken that leap and just tried it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly how I started. You take 1 or 2 days off per week and you start learning, start
Hmm.
building.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a journey. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
Just like life.
Absolutely. I always say speed kills
Yeah.
because I think in our culture we want everything really quickly, but
Gratification. Yeah.
nothing good really happens overnight. I mean, no good relationships happen overnight, no good job opportunities I mean, if something does just land in your lap, then you're fortunate. But I think hard work pays off and just sticking with it and having a dream. I mean, I don't have a vision for my business, but I have a dream. I have a dream to help women. I have a dream to, be uplifting to people. And so I'm just doing what I know to do that.
Yeah. Well, Martin Luther King didn't have, a plan either. He had a dream. So you're doing something right, like I said.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So if you just have a few more minutes left, I have a few rapid fire questions left for us.
Sure.
Okay. What's the number one thing listeners can do to improve their quality of life right now?
Slow down.
Love that. Love that.
Just slow down.
And now is the perfect opportunity.
I
Yeah.
mean, it is
Stay
just
home and
landed.
slow down.
It's landed in our lap, unless you're a medical professional, and then you're probably, especially in New York, they're probably not slowing down.
Yeah.
So, but when it all subsides in a month, which it will, this coronavirus will not last forever,
No.
then, just slow down.
Yeah.
Life isn't a sprint,
Yeah.
it's a marathon. So take your time.
Yeah. I mean, that's the silver lining, I guess, of Corona. The fact that, yeah, it had to force us to slow down, and that may not be good for, small businesses and things like that. But, just appreciate it for what it is. If you're, blessed with the opportunity to stay healthy and just stay home, then just do that and slow down, you know.
Well, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for people that do have a lot of money to help those little business owners that are struggling. I mean, it's a time to really share love and to share what we have and to
Yeah.
care about others and quit looking at ourselves so much and start looking outward.
Yeah, it's a time, like you said, to come together, and we're not all separate, and just to share the wealth, share what we have, share our resources, especially like with the everybody panicking and going to the store and buying everything out,
It's
don't buy
crazy.
everything for yourself, leave the masks for the medical professionals that have to see sick people and tend to sick people. Share the resources in a mindful way so that the people that need them get them first.
Yeah, so that I'm not wiping with my t-shirts.
You could get a fashionable bidet though.
I actually bought one of those for my mother.
Yeah, see, so those businesses probably skyrocketed as well as reusable diapers. I think too.
Oh goodness.
Anywho, yeah, humor is very good as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. Laugh, and incorporate joy into your day every day.
what's a favorite hobby or pastime of yours?
I love to scrapbook and I love to read. I love to study because
Cool,
I'm a nerd. I really, truly am a nerd at heart.
awesome. What is your favorite beverage?
Sweet tea.
Sweet tea. Nothing beats that.
I'll drink it unsweet, but I prefer it sweet. But
Yeah,
tea, any kind of tea, I'm happy as long as it says TEA on it.
nice. Nice. All right. So, lastly, how can our listeners learn more about your work and get in touch with you?
So my website, I have a brand new website, just came out this week actually.
Mhm.
It's Dr. Candace Jeffries.com, and everything's on there. There's all kinds of ways to get a hold of me on there. So
Okay, nice. So I'll have all that in the show notes. Again, thank you so much for joining me today, and good luck to you and your endeavors, whatever, that future holds for your business. Good luck.
Well, thank you so much for having me. You are absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.